Happy New Year, Eternal Evolution! Welcome everybody back to Dialar Swedic Tactics. I hope you had a good evening. Nice to see you up and early on this first day of 2024, watching some Eternal Evolution videos. Now, since it's a new year, we gotta make new lists. So what better way to start than the Who Should You, X30, or Hyperevolve first? If you guys have never seen this, I think I am a month behind, but I can't really recall. So let's pull it up right now. There we go. This list is always available on my master Eternal Evolution spreadsheet that is linked in the description of this video. So you can always find it there. It does change depending on, you know, who comes into the game, whatnot. Now, right now, we are sitting at a time where we just received 5 collab heroes, 5 Evangelion units. One of them does make it on this list. There are a bunch of caveats, so if you're looking at this, you kind of gotta get the whole picture of what you're looking at before you can understand how it works. So, how this works is this is an X30 Hyperevolved list. Now, generally, you are gonna want to Hyperevolve those units that you do take to X30. Now, there are some caveats to that. If we go right down to the bottom, you'll see in yellow right down here with the supports, and I do have this thing broken out by classes. If you look at supports, it says, I do not recommend hyperevolving supports before other classes, because generally you're going to get the benefit of their everything that they can do aside from being hyperevolved. They don't really need to be hyperevolved, because what does hyperevolving a unit do? It basically gives them 10% more stats. It's 10 to 15, I think someone worked out the math, but a little bit more HP, a little bit more defense, damage reduction, all that stuff, right? So that is generally what you get from hyper-evolving. Some heroes that can double dip in stat priority, like Vanguards, who can turn HP into attack, they really do benefit from hyper-evolving. Now, supports, the only one down here, we're going to start at the bottom because of the caveat. As you see right here in yellow, I do not recommend hyper-evolving supports before other classes. Now, the reason why I'm going to talk about this now is because Fiona recently, she is one support that, yes, I do recommend hyper-evolving her, because in a lot of fights, like say Vanguards or Assassins, it's a race to see who kills the other Fiona first, because if you can kill the Fiona, then that's going to prevent her giving immunity states to her team. Now, for that reason, I do recommend hyper-evolving her. I do recommend giving her tempered boots, HP boots, to try to up her survivability. Whereas Purin and Miranda, to be honest, hyper-evolving them doesn't add a lot to your teams versus what you can get elsewhere by hyper-evolving other units. Really, you could just have Purin and Miranda both at X30, 240, non-hyper-evolved, and they'll be just fine. But I do recommend, since we're on them, let's just say Purin is still the best support in the game. As such, yes, you definitely want her X30 because it's going to give the increased energy regeneration. And then Miranda, you want her X30 because it's going to give the extra injection, which, you know, persists through her death. It is a big old attack boost to 2 heroes on your team. Very, very beneficial. Fiona, her X30 is the second immunity phase, which is important in PvP, and it does help in the Thundercliffs if you're using Assassins or Vanguards. So as such, Purin is your number 1 priority for supports to X30, Miranda number 2, Fiona number 3, but Fiona is the only one on this list that I do recommend hyper-evolving. Okay, with that said, let's go to the top of the list. Now, as it pertains to X30s, you see at the top, I said X30, these ones 100%. People in the front row. In the second row, highly consider these X30s as well. And then the third row, X30 may or may not be required. Pretty much now we've evolved in Eternal Evolution to where everyone on this list, you're going to want to take to X30 regardless, right? So, you know, X30s, the red runes are a little bit more plentiful in the game. There are other places where you can get them. They're giving them out in every day in the virtual training, daily tasks. If you bought the daily or the yearly pack, which is still the best pack in the game, you're going to get a lot of red runes. They've increased the drop rates of red runes in, I do believe, Wasteland sweeps. There's just much more places to get red runes nowadays. And as such, I would say that if a unit is on this list, they are currently viable to X30. But I would recommend the ones in the front row. Work from the front row back, right? Front row. Oh, okay. Go. So up here, this yellow box right at the top, if a lot of people don't read it, and it's pretty small, you're probably not going to read it in this video, but I'm going to go over it really quickly. Hyperevolve, first columns, heroes to start. Prioritize those who are already X30, and this is Hyper Evolution. Prioritize teams. What does that mean? That means if you're going to Hyperevolve Claire, well, then you might as well Hyperevolve Ares and Barog next, right? Work on your teams. After the first column, if a hero is preceded by a green box, which every hero in this is preceded by a green box, they are a good candidate for Hyper Evolution. Those heroes preceded by a red box, which you're probably never going to see again, are likely to be replaced at some point by a new release hero. Now, eventually, as we get closer to a new Vanguard hero, this will change to a red box. This one right in front of Barog. Right? So this does change based on where we are in the cycles and what we're expected to get next. For the longest time, Luke was up here on the energy one, and I had a red box in front of him forever because he was still the best third option on an energy team, but he was very, very much due to be replaced, and he has been, and he is gone. So that is how this sheet works, right? First column first, prioritize teams, supports, only do Fiona for Hyperevolve, but they are all viable for X30. So let's start in the energy class, right at the top of the list. Now, what makes the energy class kind of unique is that they're all somewhat plug and play. Cariolis, you can put him on a Vanguard team to help mitigate tanks. Jaina, you can plug and play her into everywhere. We used her in the Endless Battle Lionstorm to get more points until we switch over to Dom. We use Jaina. She can be in and out of the energy team too. Northeon as well are plug and play. The energy units, they're all high damage units, and they're all plug and play, even outside of their own teams. But Nord is still getting the first overall as the energy class because I think he's got more viability in more teams for the plug and play. And if you don't have Nord, your energy team is basically not effective, right? So start with Nord. He's going to be your frontliner. He's going to be the one taking the damage in any team you put him in, and in PvP on an energy team. Get him done, get him set, get his gear set, and then move on to your damage dealers, because without your tank, without your front guy soaking up all the damage, these two are just going to die very, very quickly anyway. So, oh, someone, James Warren just subscribed. I'm going to have to, thank you, James, if you ever see this video. So Northeon number 1, Jaina number 2, Cariolis number 3, all of them very, very good units. But if I was going to put a priority on all these three, it would be Nord first, Jaina second, Cariolis third. Moving on to the tanks. Now, Pandemonium gets the first slot. Now, Pandemonium is really not as plug and play as Teresh and Wamagon. Teresh and Wamagon, you can kind of chuck in other teams. Wamagon, not so much anymore nowadays. But Teresh, I've seen him in Vanguard teams. I have highlighted that in a couple other videos. So I'd say that Teresh is probably the most plug and play of these units. In my casual account, which I have up right now, that you saw at the beginning of this video, I do use Teresh in, say, some of the Katosian Triangle dungeons. I use him in Terradome because he can benefit Vanguard teams. He can benefit assassin teams. He can benefit all of your melee teams. And then he is a linchpin of the new tank team. But without Pandemonium, you don't have a tank team. Without Panda, there is no tank team. You're not running. Your tank team will just die. It won't even get off the ground. So as such, Pandemonium has to still have the number 1 spot for X30 and Hyperevolved. His X30 makes the entire tank team. Him being Hyperevolved, since he's squishy, makes him last longer, which makes the tank team. Basically, Pandemonium is a support damage unit for the tanks. Ray is a support healing unit. She's not on this list because we can only do 3. Teresh, he's going to be your frontliner. If you X30 him, he's going to give, I do believe it's a bigger HP boost to your back row units. And if you Hyperevolve him, then he's going to give an even bigger HP boost to your back row units, which is where you usually want to shove your Pandemonium and your Ray. So Teresh, the tank team is all a kind of a conglomeration of beefy support units, right? Really, they're not doing a whole lot of damage. Their prototypes doing a whole lot of damage. Their commanders allowing the team to do a whole lot of damage. But Wamagon, definitely a decent X30, but he's getting to the point where this might turn yellow or red, because we do have a new tank coming in the game in like 5 days. So Wamagon might be going out. In fact, I'm going to change this color after this video. I'm going to change this to yellow. Yellow. Or red. Actually, I might do red. I think he's going to go red. Yep, because I do think the new tank, he is in danger of being replaced, even though I think I'm 50-50 on that. So maybe we'll go yellow. Hunters. Okay, hunters. Hunters are kind of like, unless you have Artemis, and if you look at this box here, in yellow, beside the hunter box, it does say, if you have Artemis, she is the highest priority hunter. So she is number 1 always. Artemis is number 1 always, and then you're going to shuffle these two, or the Ryzeris off. But since Artemis is so limited to get for most of the player base, and she's so exclusive, and you're not going to run her on a team anyway, and you're not going to be able to hyper-evolve her until you get 8 copies anyway. So she's so far removed from 99% of the player base that she's not even, I don't even put her on this list, because she's not, again, she's not viable to 99% of the people that might be looking at this list. So Rebecca is number 1. Rebecca, you know, her X30, oh, I can't even remember what it does. But she's just a great unit. She facilitates all of the hunter teams by giving them all that shielding. And her X30, if anything, is just going to ramp her damage through the roof. And she is currently the highest damage dealing hunter after Artemis. So as such, she is your highest priority for X30 Hyper Evolved. And then if you were going to go all in on hunters, which I don't recommend, because they are fairly not weak. They're not really weak. They require so much investment if you want them to do anything. And really, what does a non-Artemis hunter team kill nowadays? Not much. Not much. So if you were going to do another one next, Arcadia, her X30 turns her direct line ultimate into 3-directional ultimate. So she turns her into basically an AoE, gives her a lot more damage, and then of course you're getting the attack bump that's going to beef her up. And of course her X30 or her Hyper Evolve is going to ramp up that damage as well. And the same thing applies to Ryzeris. Ryzeris' X30, she gets another revive. Ryzeris is like a support hunter for the hunter team. She provides a 200 attack speed boost to all hunters on her team, and most of the hunters all revolve around true damage and attack speed mechanics. Even Rebecca needs attack speed in her kit. Arcadia needs attack speed in her kit. Artemis needs attack speed in her kit. Mari, all the hunters do now. And as such, you still kind of need Ryzeris on the team to facilitate that attack speed boost. And as such, you want her on the team as long as possible, even though I don't think her X30 really facilitates making her attack speed bonuses bigger. It just makes her alive on the field longer, and she can dish out decent damage. You know, she is an AoE slot type hunter that, you know, she's really good. I like her. I like Ryzeris. So she's still on this list. Although if you have Arcadia, it's going to be Arcadia, Rebecca, or not Arcadia. If you have Artemis, it's going to be Artemis, Rebecca, Arcadia, and then Ryzeris, you can just plug her into the team regardless, and maybe not spend runes on or Hyper Evolution Crystal. Vanguards. Okay, so this list, Vanguards have shifted a little bit since last month. So I have moved Claire ahead of Ares. Why? Because my Immortal Zero Claire, who is Hyper Evolved X30, can in some instances outdamage my and outsurvive my maxed Ares. So so Claire at, you know, equivalent evolution levels is going to vastly outshine what Ares can do. Both of those two units are the core of your Vanguard team. So as such, very, very simple. Claire, highest priority, then Ares, highest priority, and then Barag is still on this list. Now I might make this yellow because if the devs do fix Awakened Leo, if they fix his kit, if they tweak his kit to actually make it work as he should, as an awakened hero, he should be number 1 on this list. Their intention by awakening him, in their own words, was to put him back into the Vanguard team. So I do fully see a change to Awakened Leo's kit, and I will put him on here when they do make the adjustments. But for now, and I will change this to red. So I'm going to put a red in front of Womagon and a red in front of Barag. Because yes, Claire and Ares will carry your Vanguard teams. Barag, do you really need his X30? No. Do you really need to Hyper Evolve him? No, probably not anymore. It helps. It definitely helps, but it's not mandatory anymore. I think Awakened Leo is going to replace Barag on this list eventually. Now, assassins. Again, assassins are going to be the same as the hunters. Read the yellow. If you have Cora, right, Caraxia, she is the highest priority assassin for X30 and Hyperevolve. Keep in mind, her X30, she also has an X40, so you can actually, you need 500 red runes to max out Cora. And in order to hyperevolve her, you need lots of copies. You need 8 copies of Cora. I think 8 or 7. I could be wrong. Maybe it's 7. You need a bunch of copies of Cora, and they come very, very slowly. So if you have her maxed, yes, she is not maxed. If you have her immortal, she has to be on this list in first. She just does. She's that good. She's an SP. Now, if you don't, again, vast majority of players don't have Cora. And they don't have her up to a viable state where they can even X30 or Hyperevolve her anyway. So then it's Dom. Dom is still the GOAT for assassins. His kit was constructed in such a way that it'll only scale with every other new assassin that comes in. He'll like, because his ultimate, I guess his ultimate does have a cap, but he's aging like a fine wine. And they've put him in more places in the game too, made him a little bit more easily to achieve for free-to-play people. So Dominic is still the #1 assassin currently in the game that you want to X30 and Hyperevolve. Samael #2. Samael is really, really good. He is technically a tank for the assassin team, but he has a lot of plug-and-play viability. Dom also has plug-and-play viability. For the longest time, Endless Battles had Dom in every team. It's just Dom was that good. Samael, he is also that good. You can plug and play him. I use him in my front line for story missions. Samael is just a really, really, really good unit, and they designed his kit really well. He is second on this list for Hyper Evolution X30. Next, we have an EVA unit. Okay, now I have to explain why. Because part of me wants to leave Rick on here, and I even left Rick's text in here. So, EVA 2, Asuka, is a slightly better version of Motoko. Now, both of them can put out obscene damage numbers, right? So, if you don't have Cora, I would say you'd want to go Dominic, Samael, EVA. And then your option for a 4th assassin is going to be either Moto or Rick. Now, Rick is still going to trump both of the collab units in Guild Hunt. You're still going to need Rick for Guild Hunt. So as such, there is an argument to X30 Hyperevolve Rick if Guild Hunt is a focus. But given that people have, or Guild Hunt is becoming less and less of a problem to clear, it's not so much of a priority. And then if you were going to just want an assassin for other places in the game, for PvE and PvP, well, Asuka is going to be best for PvP. And then if you had Helentis X30, you would use her at Hell Arena. If you had Moto, maybe you would use Moto as well. So I would say the only reason why Rick would be on here is if you're really set on being a whale killing monster for your guild, then Rick would replace Asuka. But otherwise, I think Asuka is probably going to hold the #3 spot until a new assassin comes into the game. So Dominic #1, Samael #2, EVA 2, Asuka #3. But also that comes with an asterisk that if you really want to do well in Guild Hunt, then Rickert is going to be the 3rd. If Guild Hunt is your focus. You see I have it in bold. Rickert X30 needed per PvE, and he's needed for Guild Hunt Whale. Dominic is needed for Guild Hunt Whale, and Samael is also needed for Guild Hunt Whale if you want to score massive numbers. Summoners. Okay, so this has changed since last month. Awaken Daniel. He is that good. He is that good. You can see it's SSS Plus. This is the first SSS Plus to make the board, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know if I have to say much, but he, at Awakened 5, he becomes the best summoner. Just hands down. Damage-wise, he still brings that +10 attack to summoned creatures, so he's going to help out the team. He's got so much CC in his kit. He's got so much like anti-assassin, anti-vanguard in his kit. Awakened 5 Daniel is a monster, and the higher up you go in his awakenings, just separates him from Sif and Ampu by degrees each time, each awakening. He's that good. They did a really good job. That is what an awakened hero should be, and it's really nice that they made him that good at Awakened 5, which is relatively easy for free to play to get in, say, 6 weeks to 8 weeks. right? Focus on your awakened hero and go for it. He's that good. Sif, number 2. Sif is going to be... Sif and Ampu are going to kind of compete for damage across your entire summoner teams. Sometimes Sif will outdo Ampu. Sometimes Ampu will outdo Sif. Depends on the type of fight. But Ampu, again, kind of like Dominic, has aged like a fine wine. He only gets better with the summoner team as it improves. Sif, you know, she adds a lot of extra damage buffs to your other summoned creatures and your summoners, so she is definitely number 2 on this list. But Ampu is just a damage machine. He's a CC machine. He keeps everyone away from your team. He just his ability to it's his soul explosions on summoned creatures that just make him so good. It just gives him so much damage, so much, just such a good kit. Ampu is a very, very early released from after launch hero, and he's just still so good and puts out so much damage that it's really easy for me to say that for the summoners, Daniel, number 1 for X30 Hyperevolved, Sif, number 2 for X30 Hyperevolved, Ampu, definitely number 3 for X30 Hyperevolved. And once you get Daniel up to like A9, A10, the summoner team gets really hard to beat. Gets really tough to beat. So summoners are good with the old school lineup and Sif. So yes, this one was cool. I liked putting Daniel back on the board. And then we already talked about supports. So ladies and gentlemen, that is my X30 Hyperevolved tier list for January 2024. I hope you enjoyed it. If you need to reference it, like I said at the beginning, it is linked in the description of this video. I do link it in every single video that I put out. It is my EE Master Spreadsheet. Use it, abuse it, pass it around. I was going to make a dirty joke there, but I will refrain. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. Happy New Year. Happy 2024. Let's all hope that they do good things in this game. I want to see this game. I still want to be making videos for this game for the same amount of people at the end of 2024 as I did at the end of 2023. So cheers, everybody. Have a good one. Catch you in the next video. Cheers. Peace. Bye-bye.